Game Binge, the place where we bring you bite-sized, bingeable board game content from across the industry. I'm your host, James Staley, and in this episode, we're chatting with Leonard from Little Monks. His debut title, Ultimate Voyage, Final Quest of the Treasure Fleet, is currently on Kickstarter. Leonard, welcome to the binge. How you doing, sir?
I'm good. Thank you, James. Thank you for having us.
Oh, it is great to have you on this podcast all the way from Hong Kong, which is super awesome. I love chatting with people from around the world, and I think you might be the first guest I've actually talked to from I could be wrong. There might have been one back a couple hundred episodes ago, but I think you're the first one from Hong Kong. So I want to welcome you to this show. And we're going to get into some pretty cool stuff on this podcast, talking about this game, which looks really, really cool. We're going to get into the meat and bones
Thank
of
you.
that in about 10 minutes. But let's start off. I always like to get into people's backgrounds. So we're just talking quickly off air. And I was kind of wondering, because I wasn't sure if you were in the States or if you are currently in Hong Kong right now. And you were telling me that you were formerly in the States, but now in Hong Kong. So can you just kind of let us know kind of just the history a little bit behind that?
Okay, I was born in Hong Kong, and during my college years, I spent like 4 or 5 years in Boston, where I
Oh,
studied. Uh, so I came back to Hong Kong after that, but all through these years, I've been playing all kind of board games, war games, miniature games, everything. Yeah.
and what did you study in Boston?
What? Oh, I studied marketing.
Marketing. Oh, perfect. Well, that would
Yeah.
play well into something like game design and so forth. And in
If I remember anything from the class.
that's usually the case, isn't it? So in studying marketing, was the plan to get into business of some sort, or what was your kind of ultimate goal?
Well, Chinese parents, it's all about their expectations. So they wanted me to be in business, wearing ties and stuff, but they didn't know that I'm more into music and games.
Oh wow. And
Yeah, so I actually came back to become a musician.
oh wow. And
That's my profession.
what kind of music do you do? Is it like like a band or?
I was in a band, and then I wrote music for film and videos, and I own a recording studio in Hong Kong.
Wow. And is it like
Small one, very small one.
don't set my expectations too high, I guess, right?
Yeah.
That's awesome. And then is this so for like the movie and video game industry, did that give you access to you know, different genres that maybe you hadn't been exposed to before that kind of inspired you on this kind of creative journey or?
Well, those are very different because those are very commercial kind of job.
Okay.
So we work for the clients. So whatever they need, we provide. But game is my own thing. It's like what I want to do on my own. It's my hobby. It's my passion.
Yeah.
So it's different. Yeah.
And how long were you gaming for? Like, were you gaming as a kid? Is this something more kind of when you got into college, or like when did your kind of hobby gaming start?
Way back, way back, way back. I was in a chess club even when I was in primary school. I was the chairman of the chess club, and then when I was in middle school, we play a lot of like Dungeons and Dragons,
Mm,
a lot of Risk. In fact, but we don't have money. You see, in those days, we don't have money to buy all the games we want.
mm,
So I would like take out my pen and paper and draw them on a cardboard and design my own game. Like if it was Risk, we will make it a Star War Risk
okay.
or Hong Kong Risk or Hong Kong Monopoly with your neighborhood streets around it. That's how I start, if you may say, designing games,
Yeah.
like taking existing concepts and putting my own ideas into it. We will make like house rules of how to play certain games. So we always find something new, and I find it very fascinating to see people playing my game. Sometimes I enjoy it more when
Yeah.
people play my game than myself playing the game.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's a great feeling. You know, being a game designer myself, when you see someone play something you've created and they're having fun and
yeah.
enjoying themselves, and you're not even involved. You're like a fly on the wall, watching. It is.
Like
There's no
God
there's no
looking.
feeling like it. It really isn't. It is so cool. And it really is, I think,
Yeah.
the drive for a lot of people to keep creating, right? And come out with the
Oh
next
yeah.
title. And it's like, okay, I've created some things that people are enjoying and playing. Maybe I can create something else. Here's another idea I can explore. And when you're saying, about this kind of homebrew version of games when you're younger, that's how a lot of us started, right? A lot of us started just saying, hey, I'm going to take this existing game and I'm going to add some homebrew rules to it. I'm going to change some things and kind of make it my own, or maybe I'm going to create I can't afford a game, so I'm going to create my own version that I can play with my friends, in the schoolyard or at home after school and so forth. So, I think those are the initial seeds that kind of flow through to kind of where we are today. And
Yeah.
you still see that happening even with adults will sometimes get games in this hobby industry and they'll change the rules. They'll say, well, that game, I feel like it wasn't fully balanced. So I think me and my friend group, we changed a couple of the rules to kind of make it work a
Oh
little
yeah.
bit better and so forth. And so that still happens today, right? And
We
that's
do that
okay.
too. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that's a good thing, right? Anytime I had someone I'd reached out to, this is about a year ago. I'm not going to say what the game was, but uh, there was something fundamentally kind of, it seemed broken in the way the tile drafting was in the game. So a couple of us who had this game, homebrewed it and kind of fixed kind of that mechanic, the way that the drafting worked, because it just wasn't balanced, right? And I sent it to
Mm-hmm.
the person. I was like, I don't want to insult you, but this is just let you know this is a homebrew thing that we had created for the following reasons. And his response was great. I was thinking they're going to say, "Wow, you know what? That's not the official rules. These are the rules and so forth." But they're like, "That's awesome. That's fantastic. Wow, I love it when people come up with homebrew, rules for games that I've created." So even having on the publisher side that kind of openness that we're all kind of working together in this industry, and it's okay to do your own versions of things. I think it's just such a welcoming environment, which is so cool. Now,
Yeah.
for Hong Kong, is there like, because I've been to Hong Kong before, but just like literally at the airport, has transitioned it through to another country. But so I didn't get a chance to actually visit the city. I'd love to see that city someday. How is the board gaming culture there? Is there like board game cafes like you would have in North America, or how is it kind of set up there today?
There are plenty of board game cafes in Hong Kong. In fact, they have blossoms after COVID.
Mm,
Like, because I guess people are kind of sick with like video games. They want to connect with people,
mm-hmm.
especially after COVID. So a lot of board game cafes, a lot of people find gamers through the meetup apps, and just the hobby has gone boom in the
Yeah.
past 5 years in Hong Kong. Is really really amazing. I see it right before my eyes. Yeah.
And do you see a lot of transition of like North American or European games that are in that market, or is it games that are made mainly in that market, or is it a good mix? Like, what kind of games do you see in these cafes?
All right. Well, in the cafes that I go to, we mostly play Euro games.
Mm,
But a lot of people they also play locally designed game. But the local design game in Hong Kong are mostly party games, card
party games.
games,
Okay.
simpler games for if I may say like casual players.
Mm,
Okay. But I've been playing games all my life, so while I enjoy party games sometimes, I usually want to have more strategic depth in the game.
yeah.
And I like games with more of a historical background because I actually came from a war game background, if you know. Um, in fact, the game I started with was but a war game, and
Mm,
then I actually designed a game for Multiman Publishing back in I think 2012.
wow.
Yeah, and it was a pretty big game. It was like oh, wow, this size.
And what was the
Yeah,
name of
it's
that
called
game?
War of the Suns. War of the Suns is about the war of resistance of China against Japan. Because I was a history fanatics and I read a lot about all those history. So they like the concept and I was just the designer. I didn't do the marketings and
Mm,
stuff. Yeah, but they sold out
yeah.
totally. Yeah.
Yeah, it's
It was
very
pretty good.
thematic. And we're going to talk about the theme of this one in a second because I want to learn a little bit on this podcast about this particular theme because it is so cool. Little
Yeah,
Monks.
it is. It
Where did
is.
Little Monks come from? The idea of for your company name.
You mean the company name? Huh. It
Yeah.
was actually Charlie's idea. We were trying to find something that's catchy, but not too serious. So I found the image of monks is very contemplative,
Yep.
like they are always thinking. But if they're little monks, they're kind of naughty as well. Like they ignite your childhood passion.
Yeah.
Because when I play games, when I play board games, I feel like I'm a child again.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm connected to my 16 years old self.
Oh, that's
Yeah,
cool.
I'm totally immersed into that world. So we think of this idea of little monks because we want people when they play our games to find their own child inside of them, to be thinking, but also behaving like kids, to be learning and experiencing new things and exploring. Yeah.
Yeah. And then with the Charly, just so people who don't know Charly, so how are you guys related? Like, how is this kind of company made up between the two of you?
She's actually my partner.
Oh, okay. Well,
Uh, yeah, so we've known each other for many years, and she is an illustrator and a brand marketer. So she helps a lot in the artwork. But there are so much artwork we have to use external artists as well because there are over 100 cards, and there are like at least 30, 40 illustrations on the triggers, the locations, everything, the box. So we come up with the original idea, and then some of them we deal with that ourselves. Some of it we have to assign to other artists, the other artists to fulfill it.
hmm.
Yeah.
Oh, that's cool. And then, so, and have you guys known each other for a number of years, or how long have you guys known each other for?
We've known each other for over a decade, actually.
Oh, wow, that's amazing.
Yeah.
It's cool when you can have someone close to you has the same passion as you. My brother is my game designer on a lot of our titles, and having that kind of shorthand you establish in communication with someone that you know that close certainly helps when you're putting together
Yeah, and
things
she
like
played
this.
game with me too.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, it's amazing. And then, so where did the idea of the ultimate voyage, this final quest? So, what is the history of this, and like, so what is the story? So, for people that don't know, and then kind of how did
hmm
you decide to kind of pull this in and make a game out of it?
All right. Like 2 years ago, I was researching the topics for my game. For me, when I start with designing a game, I want to start with a story first, not the mechanics, because I always feel like the mechanics should fit the story, not the other way around. Not that I have a mechanics and then I just cover a skin story to it. So I was researching. I like navigation game,
Hmm.
and I realized there's no absolutely no Asian exploration navigation game in the market. And I was reading an articles about the last voyage of Zhang He. Of course, I know the story long ago, but that story actually is like a night, like a click, just click on me because it's not just talked about how strong or how big the fleet was. It also talked about how the politics, how the world, the whole of Asia and Africa was, like the relations between all these kingdoms, the challenge of Zhang He. Because um, for viewers who doesn't know the history, when we talk about Zhang He, the explorer in this game, he is quite different from the explorer in the European, like Columbus or Da Gama. Because in Europe, you are exploring new land, you are finding trade routes. But in Asia, it is more about the diplomatic mission. It's
Mm.
more about getting recognitions from all these countries. So it was very different. And trade is sometimes even second thought. So and they didn't go on to explore new land. They go on to established diplomatic ties with all these countries. Um, Actually, I remember when I was talking to a friend, I said the fleet of Jiang He is a little bit like the American aircraft carrier group of
Mm.
nowadays. So they travel to all these ports, friendly ports mostly, and because it is sort of a diplomatic mission. Of course, sometimes they still engage in combat. There was some combat, but it was not the main thing. Yeah, it was more about making friends because the emperor back in China was just grabbed his throne from his cousin, so he was not very stable, if I may say. So he need the recognition from all these other countries. So if he can somehow get the consulate to congratulate him on his coronation, he feel more secure in a way. Yeah.
So then the objective of this game, so you've emulated this kind of, and just showing it on screen while you're talking here. I mean, this is a big game, right? Like it's very Euro style feel to it when you kind of look at it on the table. Beautiful artwork, beautiful design, lots of color. And you can see
Thank
these
you.
different trade routes that you're kind of establishing. So the objective of the game, I guess, is to um, finalize trade routes. I know I think there's 3 or 4 different ways you can actually trigger the end of the game. But is it kind of who can raise the most amount of money, or who can make the most amount of contacts, or kind of what is that kind of game end kind of target?
All right. There are four ways you can get victory points. The one is prestige and profit. The
Mm.
prestige is more or less like pleasing the emperor. So the emperor is fond of animals. So he got a royal zoo with lions and giraffe and rhinos and everything. So if you bring back those animals, he'll be happy.
Yeah.
So that's prestige. If you gain the recognitions, the tributary relations with all these other kingdoms and empire, he'll be happy. So you gain prestige. Profit is when you get those trade good like jams, like spices and all those, and you got profit because you can sell them when you get back to China. So it's a balance of these two. You can get a lot of prestige, but you have no profit. All right. So the emperor is not going to be very happy because you're wasting his money. If you get a lot of profit, but there's no prestige, it's not good. So you have to balance those two,
Mm.
and you got the lower of your prestige point and your profit point. That's just number one. And the number two, we have objective. Objective cards is like this. So you got a point on each objective cards,
Hmm.
and each of these objective cards are more or less based on historical events.
Mm.
Like one of those have the rise of Davet, which is Vietnam today's, and they were just gaining independence from China in back in the early 15th century. And some objectives ask you to get a set of different trade goods, things like that. So that's number two. Number three, writing story. We have 6 regions on the map, and players actually take the role of captains of the treasure fleet. And each of the players will be writing story about each region. So it's a competition on who will write the best story, so that people back home will read your story instead of other people's story. So
Mm.
you got like area majority kind of game on that 6 regions who, to see who's write the best story. And finally, we have the tower, which is the porcelain tower in Nanjing, is known as the seventh wonder of medieval time. It was actually more famous than the Great Wall during those days.
Oh wow.
And yeah, because there was uh, it was in Nanjing, so it was very easy to get access to by Europeans. A lot of people actually draw illustrations about it. It was very beautiful. And that was actually built by Jiang He himself. And it was filled with treasures from all these places he visited. So each level has a different structures. Like this level will be Indian, and the next level will be, let's say, Indonesian, and the next level will
Oh
be
really? Like a
Arabian.
museum almost.
Almost, yes. So that is the players will be building that tower as well. with the thrashers they bring back, with the conflicts they bring back with them. So they will get some score in there as well. So altogether, four ways to get victory points.
Oh, that's awesome.
All very historical.
Yeah, I saw this tower and I was like, this looks so. Is it still? Is there any ruins of this tower still around? Is like,
Well, unfortunately, it was burned down during the Taiping rebellions about 100 years ago. But they recently rebuilt it, like
really?
a modern version of it. Yes, in Nanjing, right where it was,
Wow, like right on the
and
same
it was
foundation
awesome.
kind of a thing, or
Well, next to it,
next to it?
next to it.
Can you see the
Yeah.
original found? Like, have you been there? Have you gone to visit it at all, or?
Well, I was in Nanjing and they were starting to build it, but
Mm,
now it's completed. So
yeah,
if you happen to be in the area, you should go see it. It's quite amazing. I saw it in the videos. Yeah,
that's crazy. Yeah, I always
it's
love these
not made
little.
with porcelain.
Oh, it's not made of
Not made with
porcelain. Yeah,
porcelain.
that'd be a little bit more expensive, right? But these little kind of like history nuggets, I love it when they're kind of embedded in games. Um, how much research did you do for this, or how long did it take you to kind of research this entire story? Because obviously you probably knew the story ish, right? But to get into the level of detail that you represent in this game, like how much time did you take to kind of flush that out, and what were your sources?
I can't tell you how much time because it's like a perpetual kind of thing.
Yeah.
I'm always reading about, I get my hands on anything that's remotely related to the trade routes in the 15th century, like explorers of contemporary time. That's why I come up with the Conte, which is an Italian explorer at the same time, and
Mm,
put him in the solo game because they Shanghai and the Conte never met, but they could have. They were in India about the same time.
wow.
So I read every book that I could get my hands on. Seriously, yeah.
Yeah, it's cool. And this plays 1 to 4 players. I saw that it goes an hour to 2 hours. Kind of what's the average kind of play time on this game once you know how to play it?
Well, for first time, it may take a little bit more getting used to because it is quite that is quite a little bit of a learning curve.
Mm,
But once you get the hang of it, because all my rules, I try to put them onto this player aids in front of you all the time. Is all the rules that you need are either printed on the game board
yeah.
or in the action cards themselves. So if you don't understand the icons, you may have to look back and forth at the rules. But once you understand the icons, it will be very easy for you. And I got that from a lot of reviewers
Mm,
as well, because the first time they look at it, it's like, oh, okay, there are a lot of small rules. Where is this rule? Where is that rules? But then once you get the hang of it, once you play the first two rounds, piece of cake.
yeah, it's
Yeah.
the reference cards really help. I have that with one of
Yep.
our games, Cities of Venus. When you see on the
All
table,
right.
people will get a little overwhelmed, right? They're like, "Wow, this is a lot of stuff," and we always have to say, "Trust us, it's not going to be as complicated as it looks." Once we play 1 or 2 rounds, you're going to see that it's very systematic how you go through the game. And yes, well, there's a reference guide here for some of the iconography, but it's fairly intuitive once you get started, right? So, that's the thing. I know often people will shy away from games, these larger games, because they assume that they're going to be way more complicated than they are to kind of pick up. But that's why we have these reference cards and things like that, right, to help those help people along.
Yeah, and the user interface is very important. We realize once we improve the user interface, things become very intuitive to
Yeah.
players. Like you see this, oh, I need to draw a card. So I don't have to remember it. I don't have to do all the bookkeeping in my head because
Hmm.
it's right there on the card or on the graphics. So the user interface will definitely help players. And that's what we want to do is that for players not necessarily have to go back and read the rules over and over again. Because I myself is a player, I'm a gamer. I like to learn the games, and then I can just immerse myself in it and don't have to break the thought, and then I have to check up rules. That's not what I like.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And how long did it take to create this game from when you first started the development through to kind of when you had the product ready to go on to Kickstarter?
Wow. It was 2022. uh,
Wow.
I think October that we started. Have the first prototype on papers, flimsy papers, drawn illustrations with my handwritten words, and then it took us 2 years until today to have it on Kickstarter. We started on this month, so
Yeah.
almost exactly 2 years. Yeah,
Yeah, no, you can tell there's a lot of work that went into this. Um,
longer than making a movie,
yeah,
as I
like
always say.
it's the details, right? And it's kind of often creating the concepts, and then sometimes something's not working, so you have to kind of break it down and rebuild it, right? Kind of like when you're building a house of cards. Sometimes you got to wipe out the cards and kind of
Yeah,
rebuild again until you got something that's nice and stable and works. I did want to mention really quickly about the I think it was in your deluxe version. There's this really cool. Oh, there it is. I'm going to show this on screen as well. You've got this actual 3D tower.
yeah,
So
yeah.
you actually include the 3D tower in the deluxe version of the game as well, I guess, right?
I want it. Yep. So
Yeah.
I put it in the deluxe version of it.
I look.
It's actually gonna be a dice tower, so you can use it in other games as well if you want to.
That's crazy. So when you're building that tower, so do you build that tower segment by segment as well, or is it more for like a dice tower?
It's gonna be made with recycled plastic, and we have a designer working on that.
Mm,
So we have a preliminary design, but we have to do a little bit of trial and error to experiment with how the dice go into it. Because when we started, it was not a dice tower, but some reviewers and some backers suggested it that wow, you have a lot of dice rolling in this game. Why not make it a dice tower? And it's like, oh yeah, why not? So it's a great idea.
yeah.
We got a lot of that from playtesters and reviewers. Sometimes they have a great idea and it's actually helped the games a lot, and we can't thank them enough. But I have to say, in game design, the most important thing is probably subtraction instead
Hmm.
of addition,
Yeah.
because like every playtest, we have loads and loads of new ideas. But as a designer, I have to decide like what to put into the game and what not.
Yeah.
Like some of the suggestions may be good, but if I change this, I have to change that, and the game may not be balanced. So and you don't want to have too many little rules in the games. So we cut out a lot, uh, 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 especially for those that are not essential, because we don't want players to bog down into bookkeeping.
Yeah.
We want them to be spending time in strategizing and doing the action. Yeah,
Yeah, less is sometimes more, right? Like even in marketing, as a marketing concept, to go full circle, category management. One of the fundamental principles of category management is simplifying the decision process for the consumer, so that they
yeah, yeah,
and the data shows that if you got 50 varieties of products on a shelf versus three, you're going to sell a lot more product out of that section of a store with three than you will 50. And it seems counterintuitive, but when there's too many things going on, it's tough for people to make a decision, right? And you want to kind of streamline that process so that you can keep the momentum of the game and keep the momentum of the progress of the game going, right?
yeah. Momentum is very important.
Yeah.
I would say momentum and acceleration as well,
Mm,
so that players feel the sense of urgency in the game. So in our games, the end game triggers, there are four different types. So you have to be constantly be aware of what other people's are doing, because they may end the game before you are ready.
yeah. Yeah. Totally.
So yeah.
So where do you go from here? Like, so is the plan now to be a full-time publisher where you're have more games coming, or is this kind of like a one and you're done, or what's the plan for Little Monks?
Uh, I, 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 I want to make games. I want to keep making games, but it's a lot of work. It's a lot more than just designing games. Because when I started doing Kickstarter, I thought, okay, it's just sign up, put some works onto it, and that's it. Wow! And then how wrong I was. We partnered with Launch Boom, and they taught us a lot, and we realized the process of making a game is very different, if I may say, from let's say just a decade ago.
Yeah.
Uh, like a decade ago, you could have very simple design with very simple artwork or just some tables and just a menu, a rules full of works, that's fine. But now it has to be pretty because there are so many competition
Yeah.
on Kickstarters. People have miniatures, all these colorful sports and everything.
Yeah.
You have to stay competitive. I don't want to compete with just um, um, good I want to compete on mechanics. I want to compete on story, but I can't just give up on the artworks and stuff. I have to make it at least pleasing to the eyes, and hopefully people and from the reviews we get, people do like our artwork, so I'm pleased.
Oh, that's awesome. So is there another game coming after this one? Have you started the next title or?
I have plenty of ideas. Well, one of the ideas I haven't talked to anyone else about it, is to have a sequel to this game because at the end of the last voyage of Zhang He, Ming Dynasty, Ming China actually closed its border to
Mm.
further sea explorations. So there comes centuries of smugglers and pirates um, uh, in the South China Sea, and the Portuguese come in, the Spanish come in, the Dutch come in, the Japanese comes in. I think it is a very interesting setting for a sequel.
Oh, it does sound cool.
But I'm not going to review too much about it.
For those who want to check out this game, though, I'm going to put a link in the show notes so people can find it. On Kickstarter, if you type in Ultimate Voyage, it'll also pop up. There's 7 days left to go in this campaign. You're already funded.
Last 7 days.
Yeah, and so it's not like
Yes.
this game isn't happening. It is happening. It's already funded. Now it's just a matter of how much funding you get. But it's definitely worth checking out. It is a beautiful looking game, and especially for people who are history buffs that like to tie in that kind of history with also modern day Euros, I think it would be worth having a look. Leonard, thank you so much for your time. I want to wish you all the best on this campaign, my friend.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having us.
No worries. You take care. Cheers. This has been an episode of the Board Game Binge podcast, hosted by James Staley, produced by James Staley and Mike Bruner, with original music by Nick Smith. If you would like to watch these interviews live, simply subscribe to our YouTube channel, Board Game Binge, and you'll get access to live interviews, giveaways, and interesting board game content from across the industry. I can't wait for you to join us. See you next time.